Hello, Coach Dad here, and welcome to another chess video tutorial. And today I'm going to show you how to break down the king's defenses. As most of the times that we've seen in chess games, we've always seen the king sprinting to be able to get castled on the king's side, or being left out in the open to be attacked and be vulnerable by pieces. And we want to find a way to be able to attack the king. The main point of the game at the end of the day is to be able to attack the king. Chess players love to find ways to hunt down the king. So if there's a way to be able to break this down for you, we're going to find ways to break down this crazy castle or this crazy defenses that the king has set up, and be able to find some vulnerabilities in these examples that we're going to see right here. Before we can learn how to break down our opponent's king's defenses, we need to know how our pieces are going to attack. In this very basic example I'm going to show you right now is white is to move, and white is covering this entire file right now where the king cannot go. And of course, both of their rooks are being stuck right here and is unable to block any potential checks that we see in the future. White is going to move its rook to h1, creating a checkmate. Number one is check, and number two, the king cannot run away. Generally, what happens is the king is normally surrounded by pawns and is very much guarded or protected until more pieces are traded off on the board. Then the king can decide to choose to run out and be able to support the pawns in the pawn march. We're going to take this example in a little bit more complicated practice that we're going to have here. Before we begin with the next few examples, I invite you to open up the chessboard and be able to set up the pieces exactly like the way that I'm going to set up right here. You see these numbers right here in the top right hand corner. Feel free to press the pause button, be able to set up your chessboard and follow along with me. You can press play the moment you want to get straight into the answers, and I'll be able to explain all those answers further. I want you to be able to practice at home, whether if you decide to move the pieces with your hands or decide to try to visualize how the movements are going to be made inside your mind. Therefore, we're going to continue to practice, and we're going to increase our level of recognition for these patterns on a chessboard. We're going to carry over the concepts from the last example. In this example right here, we have black, who is one move away from winning with a checkmate with the queen going to b2. Can you find the best move for white in this example? If you said queen takes h7, you are correct. The queen is now busting down the door. The king thought he had a little protection right here from the defenses right here behind these two pawns, but unfortunately black has to respond to this. Black can only respond by king takes queen on h7, and white comes back with a great move from our example from last time, being able to cover up these two files right here. Remember, initially black thought it was defended by these two pawns right here, but white is able to sacrifice this queen right here, and black has to respond by taking the queen, and then white comes in with two great attacking pieces coming all the way up here along the G and the H file. In this next practice example, I'm about to show you one of the most famous games about getting the king out of its cover. Being able to get the king into hostile territory and then trapping him and then attacking him right then and there. As we can see here, black is to move. Can you find the best move for black? If you said queen takes h3, you are correct. The queen is going to sacrifice itself to open up position of the king right here, and the king answers by taking the queen, now creating what we call the death march. This is what we call the death march of the king. We're going to put the king into hostile territory, taking it out of its defenses, and now we're going to continue to attack as black. What black does next is to respond rook to h6, checking the king down the line, and the king can only move to this square right here because this pawn is guarding the square. So now the king has to move here. So the king comes here to g4. Now the knight comes in to check the king on g4 by moving to f6. The king has a couple of options right now. Of course, if it decides to move here, the knight can simply come here to block the rook from coming in to defend its king out in the open, and now created a nice discovery check on this king. This king cannot capture this rook because it's guarded by this knight. So the king kind of has two options, either to capture this knight back or to move over here to f6. Regardless of the result, even if the king decides to capture this knight right here, we then can play rook to g8, attacking all down this line right here. And of course, the king can only have one square to go to. It can only go to f5. And when the king moves to f5, the ultimate checkmating move is going to be rook to f6. This is probably one of my most favorite examples that I like to show to new students because it shows what happens whenever your king is unprotected or out in the open. And of course, we're always trying to find ways to be able to exploit the king's position by putting rooks into open files, into open positions, because they are hunters. They are hunters on the chessboard as long as they have open space, being able to attack down in open rows and open lines right here. The most common mistake that beginner players make is thinking if the opponent's king is out on the second rank, that they have gotten a very good position on them and that they have compromised their safety. But what I can assure to you is that that's not the case in this example. The example that I'm about to show you is if knight comes over here to g5 and then black responds back with h6, knight is going to take the pawn on f7. So we can see here this knight is being guarded over here by this bishop. And then of course black trades off its rook, and then white decides to capture the rook, bringing the king out to the second rank. This doesn't mean that the king is compromised its safety or its defenses. It means that even though if you traded off 6 points, the knight and the bishop with the rook and the pawn, that even though that's quote unquote an even material trade, the king can safely go back to its safety over here and being able to stay undercover. While blacks continues to still develop their pieces, white gave up 2 of their minor developed pieces for a rook that was not even doing anything in the game besides defending the f7 pawn. Now, if you want to be very successful at drawing the king out by capturing the f7 pawn, you'll be able to use this example right here. Can you find the best move for white? If you said bishop captures f7, that is the correct answer. Of course, black is going to respond with capturing this bishop, or else this bishop will just capture this rook right here. So black captures this bishop and then goes out and opens the door just a little bit to the castle and to this guarded position. And then what white does next is to offer up another piece as well, a free queen. But is this queen really free? What black can decide to do is run back into his defenses, but a checkmate is imminent when white decides to play g5 and eventually creating the queen's bear hug right here. There'll be no way to defend this potential checkmate in this position. However, black does decide to take the free queen right here on e6. Decides to open the door and take a little stroll out into the street, into the middle of the board. And now white plays a very devastating checkmate right here, where the knight is checking the king, blocking this square for the king to run away to. This king cannot come here because this knight is guarding this square. This king cannot go to these 2 squares because both of these pawns are guarding here. So this here, it shows what happens when a king starts to come out of their protection in the safety. and then these pieces are able to attack right here in the middle of the board. For this example, it seems like black has a very nice defended position right here, and black decides to try to play a move to try to kick this knight out from the middle of the board in order to try to open up the board a little bit more. So what black decided to do is play f6, and we can see here white has a move to play. Can you find the best move for white? If you said knight to g6, you are correct. The only way that black can get out of this position right now is by capturing this knight. But guess what? It has opened up the door to the castle. And then we know that rooks love to be in open files and open ranks in order to attack the king. And white's next best move is going to be coming here and going to checkmate the king all the way down this line. Again, the king's castle's doors opened up by the knight coming here to checking it and opening this opportunity for this king to be checkmated by breaking down the defenses right here. Thank you very much for watching this tutorial on how to break down the defenses of a king and being able to draw those kings out into a big open position, so that way you can have a higher chance of checkmating your opponents. We hope that you are able to follow along with everything that we've able to do today in these examples, and I appreciate you very much for watching this entire video. I hope that this continues to help you out with your chess game. As you continue to practice and practice more, you're going to get better and better. I guarantee that. So again, continue to practice. Good luck on your chess, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video.